Hi everyone, Steve Wiss here, joined by Kevin Harper, and this is our day three of the Grand Slam of Darts preview. Apologies, there was no podcast yesterday. I was on my sick bed a bit, so couldn't make it out in time. But we're certainly returning over with a few winners for Monday. How are you doing, Kev?
Yeah, not too bad, Steve. Pretty good, actually. Glad to hear you're a bit better. And hopefully we'll clatter in some winners.
Yeah, well, we're right at the business end of the group stages now. Groups E to H will be concluding on Monday night. But we start with, what is a dead rubber, really? Gary Anderson against Simon Whitlock. As far as Whitlock goes, he'll wonder how on earth he's lost two games. He's faced two opponents, just has not suited his style, I think it's fair to say. Is there any professional pride left in him here?
There should be, shouldn't there? But, he's only got himself to blame, hasn't he? His antics in the first game were pretty pathetic, really. It was pretty obvious that the kid he was playing was struggling. He wasn't doing it on purpose or anything like that. So to think that the world was against him was pretty poor from Whitlock, really. And he seemed to get cheesed off with Cameron Menzies in the second game. Well, if enjoying what you're doing is a crime, there's an awful lot of criminals out there, and maybe Whitlock could take a leaf out of Menzies' book, because he doesn't look like he's enjoyed any of it. He keeps on coming out and saying that he's practicing really well, etc., etc., etc. But the evidence is that he hasn't enjoyed any of this tournament, and on the form that Anderson showed so far, he's not going to enjoy his last game either, is he? Because Anderson's been ruthless, and that's one thing Simon Whitlock isn't.
Yeah, I mean, Anderson's 1-3 favourite here, and the handicap is a pretty strong one to cover. He's qualified, though, so will that take a little bit of motivation out of him? Although, if he wants to win the group, he's going to have to win this game, really, isn't he? Because there's every chance Menzies could absolutely smash Barry Van Peer.
Yeah, possibly. You get some dosh for winning the group, don't you? So, he's Scottish, isn't he? So I dare say he'll want a few quid. I look back at the last couple of tournaments, last couple of Grand Slams, sorry, and he's won all three group matches in the last two. So he doesn't seem to switch off when the group's won. He's one of those plays for momentum, and also I suppose there is a little bit of something, isn't there? I mean, I'm sure he's not someone who thinks about negative things, but it's pretty well known he has an awful record against Mensur Suljovic, and obviously he's on a crash course with Suljovic if one of them doesn't win their group. So it's a good idea for Anderson to win his group. It looks like Suljovic might well nick his group, and then at least he'll avoid him until the quarterfinals, when over that sort of distance you'd think Anderson would get the better of him.
So you mean you're not betting on this game, but if you had to give a correct score prediction?
I mean, I think Anderson will win. Depends if he throws first or second, but he'll probably have a break throw in hand, I would have thought. 5-2, 5-3.
Okay, the second game in that group, Cameron Menzies against Barry Van Peer, is a straight knockout. Whoever wins the match will be qualifying for the last 16, and maybe for Menzies, a big win. Might even win him the group, potentially, depending on the other match. I mean, this is a strange one because we've got Cameron Menzies, who I've got to say a lot of people have embraced him with his attitude, and we've got Barry Van Peer, who in his first match, I have to say my missus was watching this with me at the time, and she was literally laughing at his style. She was like, I've never ever seen a guy with this sort of dart style before. So I was, the sooner it went on though, it became apparent something more serious was at work, and this guy actually has been suffering from dartitis, which for those listening is an actual real disease. Maybe you might just want to explain to the listeners a little bit more about it, Kev.
Yeah, it's the same as golfers having yips. It's a mental thing. Everything's ready to throw the dart, but your mind just won't let you throw. Your mind and your muscles don't connect to let you throw the dart, and that's why you'll often see him. A couple of times he's had practice throws, hasn't he, before he's put his dart in his hand, and quite a few times he has to reload. There's another player in this tournament who has the same issue, Mensur Suljovic. Very often you'll see him slide the dart around in his hand until he can get it comfortable before he throws as well. And obviously Mark Webster's survived it and is looking much the better for it. Basically, you know, he seems to have a problem being allowed to release his first dart. Darts 2 and 3 generally come out pretty quick. It's just that first setting himself, you know, sort of making himself throw that first dart that he's really struggling with. And obviously it was even more visible on Sunday when, you know, he was reduced to tears, probably by the way Gary Anderson was playing, in fairness, but also because there were a load of pissed up twats behind him making fun of what was not a particularly nice situation. So actually that might have helped him out, the fact that he was reduced to tears, because he won't get that on Monday night. He'll be allowed to concentrate. I would imagine the crowd will go full circle and they'll be behind him, perhaps not as behind Menzies, which will be an interesting dynamic. But yeah, let's hope he gets over his problems and he can release the dart a little easier.
Yeah, I've got to say it was pretty horrible to watch actually against Gary Anderson. Very painful viewing. At one point, I honestly thought he was going to chuck in the game and walk off stage. It just looked impossible for him to release the dart. But let's get to this game though. Menzies is a 1-3 favourite. Everyone will be expecting him to win, won't they? Because they just look at Vampire right now and they're thinking, really, does Vampire even want to win? You know, say he got through to the next round, and he's got a best of 19 match then to have to get over his dartitis issues. I mean, do you see Vampire somehow achieving a massive shock, or will Menzies get the business done?
Well, it wouldn't be a massive shock if he won, would it? He did beat Whitlock with the same problem on Saturday, albeit maybe not quite as bad as it was on Sunday. But I do believe Anderson's performance kind of heightened the pressure. I'm not so sure that Menzies is capable of that sort of thing. Without the issue, you'd probably make Vampire maybe a slight favourite. He's probably played on more big stages, certainly at this level, than Menzies has. It's really interesting. You can probably count on the amount of times on one hand that Cameron Menzies has been 1-3 to win a darts match, and that's no disrespect to him. He's just not 1-3 material, let alone 1-3 on TV in a match that he has to win, in a match that everyone, like you say, will expect him to win because of the problems of his opponent. He's in a position that he's not really used to, and he's done very well in this group so far, but really he's been free rolling so far, hasn't he? He's played two of the PDC's greatest players, two top 10 players in the PDC. Nobody expected him to win them games. He could go up there, he could relax, and he could play darts, but that's not the case now. All of a sudden, he's expected to win. There's a bit of pressure on him. Can he enjoy it like he's enjoyed his first two games? If he goes a leg behind, does he know how to react? All these kind of things. If Vampire's struggling, does he have the experience to plod on and carry on that Whitlock didn't do? There's an awful lot of questions for a 1-3 shot. I don't think Vampire will win the game. I have to say that. I do think these problems will take their time to get over. But there's no reason why Vampire can't keep it close. He's certainly going to have the crowd on his side. I'm almost sure of that. I think everyone realised just how bad it is, and they'll support him. So that will help him. It just doesn't look a game to bet on for me now.
I think it's going to be a really interesting game to watch. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of betting. I mean, I wouldn't be taking Menzies on a -2.5 handicap. I mean, all he has to do is win the game, for goodness sake. And it could get close potentially. I mean, all sorts, anything could happen here. The crowd's going to get involved a lot, crazy game this could be. So that's Group H out of the way. We now move to Glenn Durrant's group. Glenn Durrant, who's already qualified for the last 16, Group E. And, if he wins against Corey Cadby, he will confirm himself as the group winner. And we start with this match. I mean, as far as Corey Cadby was concerned, against Peter Wright, it was more like Corey Cadbury, wasn't it? He melted like a chocolate bar, It was, he's out of the tournament, eliminated. Is he the sort of guy who's going to want to go out on a high, or is he just going to give up the ghost here?
Hard to say, isn't it? I mean, he's a young kid. His problem is he believes the hype that's around him. And that's a big issue. Let's be fair, he didn't play particularly well in the World Series last week. I know he beat Jelle Klassen, but that was more on the antics that he performed rather than anything else. And then he lost to Gerwyn Price in that ridiculous match. And he hasn't been particularly good this week. Alan Norris brushed him aside pretty easily. Peter Wright absolutely battered him. And it was interesting to see Peter Wright had a good old talk to him after that game. I suggest it went something along the lines of, "You're not that good. Knuckle down and start playing darts rather than pissing the crowd off," etc., etc., etc. And it'll be interesting to see if he heeds those words. He's got his work cut out, Cadby. That's one thing that is for sure. Even if he tries in this game, he's a distinct second favourite. He's playing, in my eyes, one of the top 10 players in the world of darts. Forget the fact that Glenn Durrant plays on the BDO circuit. Stick him on the PDC and he'd be in the top 10 after the 2-year ranking system without a shadow of a doubt. And we've seen that. The way he dismantled Peter Wright the other day was fantastic. That was not a bad performance by Peter Wright on Saturday. Durrant was just too good for him. And he waited for his chance, against Alan Norris on Sunday. And it didn't come originally, but when it did, bang, thanks very much. And you're out of here as well. He'll get a chance against Cadby. He'll take his chance against Cadby. And I would be very, very surprised if he doesn't win the game.
Durrant is 1.62 favourite here. Does that look a little bit big?
Yeah, possibly. Very big, but, you know, it's just, he's only got to win, really, hasn't he? You know, there's no real point in playing odds-on shots, well, right the way through the next 2 nights, really.
Okay, then Peter Wright faces Alan Norris. Straight knockout here. Whoever wins the matches through to the last 16. Wright is roughly a 1-3 favourite, though. A fairly big handicap to cover. I mean, you'd probably expect him to win the game, but Alan Norris is no mug, is he?
No, indeed. You wouldn't be taking him to cover the handicap, that is for sure. Wright's won all 4 of their matches in the past, but 3 of them have gone to a deciding leg. So, you know, he's not going to roll over for anyone, is he, Norris? He's a big scorer. If he hits his doubles, he's more than capable of beating Peter Wright. There's no doubt about that. But Wright, you could kind of get the feeling he's just bubbling under the radar a little bit. You know, people wrote him off after that defeat to Durrant in his first game, but there was no need to. You know, Durrant played a really, really good game of darts there. Didn't miss anything, really. And to be fair to Wright, he didn't miss an awful lot either. He just didn't get much of a look in. Obviously, he thrashed Cadby. We can't look too much into that. That was one man playing darts and one man, well, doing something completely different. Whereas Norris, on the other hand, he's played 2 pretty solid games, hasn't he? Again, he didn't do an awful lot wrong against Glenn Durrant. Lost it 5-3, but he was 3 each, wasn't he? And then Durrant put in 2 fantastic legs to finish it. So I would imagine this would be fairly close. I mean, like you say, knockout darts. So neither are going to give up without a bit of a fight. They've both got good scoring power. So it'll come down to the finishing, and that's probably where Wright has the edge. But I'm not convinced he has the edge to cover a 2.5 leg handicap. But that handicap's a teasing little bastard, isn't it? Because if Wright throws first and breaks throw, he'll win 5-2. And all of a sudden, Norris has done nothing wrong and you've been done up. But on the flip side of that, if Norris throws first and Peter Wright wins by a breaker throw, he'll win 5-3. And you've survived the handicap. Until you know who throws first, you can't really get involved in that 2.5 line unless you're absolutely certain the person you're backing is far too good. And, well, Wright is good, but I'm not sure he's far too good for Norris.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has that feeling of, you know, if Norris had the throw, sort of 5-3 or 5-4 Peter Wright any day of the week, really. You know, if it did go to deciding leg, you would back him, wouldn't you? Just in that little pressure moment, just have a little bit more. But yeah, I think looking like a Peter Wright win, but it's going to be not one to bet on. The next game in the group, Michael Smith against Mark McGeaney. Sorry, no, that's the next group, isn't it? What am I on about? I'm getting mixed up with the schedule here. But yeah, the next match on is Michael Smith against Mark McGeaney from a completely different group. Now, some of the BDO players have caught the eye this week so far, put in some good performances. But Mark McGeaney hasn't been one of those. He just hasn't looked comfortable on that stage, has he, Kev? And you expect that to continue? No,
he hasn't, and that's a surprise actually, because he's a really good player. You don't make 2 Windmill World Finals if you can't play darts. He's the BDO number 1 on merit. He just hasn't shown it. Maybe the expectations got to him, whether it's the occasion that's got to him. You know, only time will tell. We'll probably know a little bit more about that in this game, because obviously there's no expectation on him now he's out, and the occasion will be a bit flat for him as well. So maybe we'll see his best game here. But you know, you look at his 2 averages so far, and he's got an awful lot to find. You know, he's been below 80 and around 80, and really and truly, just to live with Michael Smith, he's going to have to find 15 points on that, and that's if Smith has an indifferent game. But he hasn't had that yet, has he? Smith was really good against James Wilson in that first game, flew out of the traps, and then held on when Wilson came charging back at him. And only really Mensah Suljovic knows how Mensah Suljovic beat him on Sunday. I thought Suljovic was hanging on for 8 legs in that game, but then when it went 4 each, my word, Suljovic produced an absolutely storming 11 darter last leg, and there was nothing Smith could do about that. But he weren't far away from winning that match at all. And if he can perform anything like that standard, then he'll win here. Interesting that this is the first game in the group on Monday night, Steve, because Smith has the opportunity to put a little bit of pressure on Suljovic when it comes to winning the group. Obviously, if Suljovic wins his game later on, he will win the group. But you know, you look at it going into the night, and Suljovic +4. A leg difference, Smith +1. If Smith can win this 5-0, 5-1, then he'll force Suljovic to win the group. Whereas, you know, if he only wins sort of 5-4, Suljovic can lose and still win the group, and that'll add a different dynamic. The more legs Smith can win this by, the better his chances are of winning this group. And I think if you look at Group H, and I'm not being disrespectful to Cameron Menzies or indeed Berry Van Peer, but you would rather play the winner of that game than you would Gary Anderson any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So there is a real advantage for winning this group, and I'm sure Michael Smith knows that. He's a pretty shrewd cookie. I get the feeling he's someone who would look at draws and plot his way around, whereas Suljovic maybe might not. He'd be pretty confident in his own ability to beat anyone. So I can see Smith coming out and doing a real job here. If he gets the throw, holds on early, gets a break, goes 3-0 up. Obviously, McGeeney's playing for little. He'll probably start to feel a bit more embarrassed again, like he did do in his first 2 games, and his game will get even worse as he tries even harder, and Smith can run out pretty comfortable winner.
And you're going to back him on the handicap?
Certainly am, yeah, -2.5. Hopefully he throws first, and he'll only need 1 breakthrough. But, you know, his averages have been so much more dominant than McGeeney's. I mean, he's averaging near enough 20 points better per game. That's an awful lot to make up. I mean, that's 6 points per dart, you know, when at this level, that's a hell of a lot. And even if McGeeney finds his scoring power, you know, he's still got to hit the doubles, which when you're not playing particularly well, that could be the hardest part. There's no weakness in Smith's game, so even if he doesn't have to throw, I think he could win this 5-2. Obviously, if he does, he could win this even easier.
Now, if Michael Smith does do a job on McGeeney, as we hope, there's suddenly just a little bit of pressure on Mensah Suljovic, because he's in this position where he just needs 4 legs to guarantee qualification. But he could get a bit edgy, couldn't he? Because if he lost this game 5-3 or worse against Wilson, he's out. So James Wilson knows what he's got to do here, doesn't he? Interesting match, really, because Suljovic can lose but go through. I mean, he's a 1-3 favourite, Mensah Suljovic here, but would you be backing him in this situation?
I wouldn't be backing him at 1-3 anyway, Steve. I've mentioned all week how he's not good in this short format. And to be fair, you know, it's only a couple of really big finishes early on in that match against Michael Smith. Otherwise, he would have been beaten in that game. And, you know, whilst he's playing well, Suljovic, he doesn't convince me over these shorter formats. If Wilson can get off to a fast start, and he hasn't done that in either of his 2 matches so far, but if he can get off to a fast start, then we've seen that he can come good in the middle period and go on late on. Whenever a player gets into a situation where he doesn't need to win and he's concentrating on a certain number of legs, it can be really, really tricky. And Suljovic isn't actually all that experienced at this particular level in this kind of situation. So if he starts looking at 4 legs, it's easy to aim for 4 and get 3 and 2 and things like that. What he should be doing is saying, well, I'll win and I'll play either Van Peer or Menzies in the second round. Thank you very much. But when you know that 4 legs in the back of your mind is enough, and all of a sudden you're sort of sat at, I don't know, you're 3-2 down or something, and you're on throw, and you think, well, I've just got to hold my throw a couple of times, and then I'm through at 4 each. I don't need to go too mad on this deciding leg. You see it happen an awful lot in this competition. You get some real shock results in these final group matches when players kind of get to their target and kind of ease up. I mean, you see it in all sports really, which have a group stage, but particularly in this. And it's just not worth the risk, I don't think.
And if you had to give a correct score prediction here, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I think it'll be tight. I don't think Silovic is an absolute certainty, but 5-3, 5-4 either way. I mean, obviously, if Wilson has the throw and it goes 4 each, you certainly wouldn't want to be doing your conkers on Silovic to break the throw at 1-3, knowing full well he doesn't have to do it. I mean, he might not even have to do it anyway if Smith hasn't done a job on McGeeney. There's just too many ifs, buts, and maybes 24 hours out from the event to kind of guess. But you can use your kind of logic depending on that Smith-McGeeney game, how that goes to sort of know what the right bet is for this game. But at this stage, I wouldn't be ploughing my hard-earned on Sulovic, that's for sure.
I could see Wilson actually springing a shock here and winning. I think he's played well in patches so far. He certainly had 2 or 3 leg bursts of where he hit 180, 180, and then a couple of really flat legs. He seems a pretty inconsistent performer. But I think there could be some strange things happening here, and I wouldn't put it past Wilson winning it something like 5-4. It could be even a bit of value on Wilson. Who knows? But intriguing game. That's Group G, and the final group in action on Monday night is Group F. Stephen Bunting's top of it at the moment, plus 4 leg difference. Dave Chisnell, Scott Mitchell on 2 points each, and Jeffrey Dezwan yet to get off the mark, but his leg difference is only -3. Now, Dave Chisnell against Jeffrey Dezwan. Chisnell, the strong favourite, but I mean, just looking at his averages here, I know averages don't really mean much in the group stage, but 93 and 85 for Dave Chisnell. I mean, he's not exactly firing based on those statistics, is he?
And we didn't really expect him to. If you go back to our podcast on Saturday, I had a feeling that he would struggle in this group stage. I'm not convinced by any stretch of the imagination that he's fully fit. He was wincing an awful lot against Stephen Bunting, and it wasn't just the damage that Bunting was doing to the dartboard that was causing havoc. He doesn't seem to be releasing a third dart right, Chisnell. There's an awful lot of swinging his arm after the third dart, and it goes in the 1s and the 5s, and a good score becomes a mediocre score. Actually, I'll correct you on one thing, Steve. The averages do say something in this round, because usually they're distorted in the wrong direction. By that I mean they're usually an awful lot higher than they're actually reflected to be, because quite simply it's a short format. You don't throw as many darts. You're always going to average more over the 9 leg distance than you will do over the 19 leg distance and beyond. That's just common sense. So the fact that Chisnell's only averaging 85 in one of his matches in this level, that doesn't bode well. Over the longer distance, that means he's averaging sort of 80. It'll plateau to that sort of level, and you don't win any darts match at this level if you're averaging that. But he has got a good game in him, and maybe the fact that he has to win to guarantee being through, or guarantee not being knocked out. We'll find that best game. But having to win, pressure of winning, not playing particularly well against a kid who's playing well but not got the results. It's all set up for a trappy situation for Dave Chisnell, and if anyone can fall flat on his face in a trappy situation, well, Dave Chisnell's got the T-shirt and every other piece of clothing that goes with it.
One thing we do know, as far as Jeffrey Dezwan is concerned, he's got to win the match by at least 2 clear legs to have any chance of qualifying. He's got to do that and then hope Stephen Bunting beats Scott Mitchell. I mean, as far as Dezwan goes, I mean, he's just got to go lights out, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that. He's just got to play well. I hope he wins the ball, because that'll give him an extra leg advantage if he can break the throw. But just do what he's doing, really. He hasn't done an awful lot wrong, has he? I mean, he came firing back at Stephen Bunting and should have won the game, shouldn't he? Missed 2 darts at double, much to my annoyance, having backed him for that game. And he didn't do a whole lot wrong against Scott Mitchell, did he? I think that was 3 each as well, wasn't it? And then Scott Mitchell just took over with a couple of really, really good legs. And obviously you could see the disappointment on the young lad. He forgot to shake Mitchell's hand after the game. And, he clearly wants to perform well. But you've only got to look at the fact that he scored 10 180s to know that he's playing well. That's before you even look at his form. Obviously, he qualified for this tournament in the qualifying event last Monday, and he took care of some really good players en route to the tournament. And prior to that, he was quarterfinalist in the Youth World Championship, losing to Corey Cadby, it probably isn't a great shame in that. But I was interested in the first round. He beat Benito van der Pas. Not overly sure how he's still eligible for it, but he is, and that's a really, really good win. And he also made a semi-final on the floor last month. So this kid's playing well. He's just losing tight matches. If he can sort that out, there's still hope for him. And obviously, if he can get 2 or 3 legs clear here, you wouldn't think there'll be a problem. My only danger about him winning the game, and he's actually a nice price to win the match, but my only worry would be if this is a tight game, would he be able to hit that double? He didn't hit it against Bunting the other day, did he? And, that's still annoying me, and I don't really want to risk it again and, seeing him miss 2 match darts or something at 4 each or 4-3 and Chisnall going on and winning from there. That'd be heartbreaking both for him and me.
You're going to back him in the 180 market though, aren't you?
I am indeed, yeah. I mean, he's a solid scorer, this kid. Obviously, he's hit 5 180s in both his matches this weekend, and he's looked good doing it, really, hasn't he? It's not like he's forcing any of the issue. You can kind of tell when he plonks the first dart in the 60, more often than not, you may as well go and chalk up the 180 and tell him not to bother throwing the next 2 darts. It seems like, he could group them in the whole of a polo mint. It's really, really impressive to watch, actually. And it's no fluke, because I was looking through some of his European Tour performances this season. They're played on stages as well, ran on streaming on bookmaker websites. And he's actually hit 4 180s in the first round of a couple of those events as well. They're over the best of 11, but, there's only 1 leg more. So he is a relentless 180 hitter, and obviously he's in really good form. So I'm expecting that scoring to continue. He's not got a chance of winning this match if he doesn't score. One thing you guarantee with Chisnall is he'll score. Even if he doesn't hit doubles, he'll score. So Deswan has to score. There's no sort of pace issues or anything like that. Deswan's a nice fast player, but Chisnall won't slow him down or anything like that. He doesn't have that in his compass. So all things being equal, I expect this to be a really high-scoring game. The fact that it's on quite late as well does no harm. They'll have had plenty of practice time, and I expect the 180s to flow from both of them. But certainly Deswan, he can get 11 to 10 at Paddy Power, that he goes over 2.5 180s, and the fact that he's doubled that 2.5 line in his first 2 games, he should cover this here. He has got a win over Chisnall last month. That was on the floor, but that doesn't seem to matter. He seems to be playing perfectly well on the stage, Deswan. So it's not like he can't beat Chisnall or he's scared of Chisnall or anything like that. In fact, in their other meeting, he pushed Chisnall 6-4. So there's every likelihood this will be a close game. And obviously, if we get the 9 legs, we only need 1 every 3 legs from him to cover this line. But I would fancy, if he plays like he has done in the first 2 games, he'll have that line covered an awful lot earlier than that.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed with him is that when he hits a 180, he doesn't really celebrate it wildly like quite a lot of players do. So maybe for him, it's kind of run of the mill sort of thing. He's so used to hitting them, which is probably a good sign, isn't it? Over 2.5 180s for Jeffrey Deswan there. That is the recommendation for that game. And finally, Stephen Bunting against Scott Mitchell. I think it's fair to say both will be hoping Deswan has won the previous fixture there. If Dave Chisnall, though, has won, and say he's won by a couple of legs, then there's a bit of pressure on both of them here. I mean, it's a really tough match to actually call here, because in terms of the situation, how Bunting's mindset's going to be, one thing we do know, Mitchell has got to win the game to have a chance of qualifying. So how do you see it going?
Well, the one thing we also know is Bunting will only need a set number of legs to qualify, rather than win the match. There's no situation in that first game that means that Bunting has to win this game. He only needs to win 3 legs, and he's definitely qualified, come what may. So we're into that Sulovic situation again. Does he target the 5 or does he target the 3? Generally, when you're not playing particularly well, or rather, I'll change that. Generally, when you're not having much success on the big stage like Bunting isn't, there's nothing wrong with his form at the moment, but his successes hasn't been there recently. Generally, you'll look to the worst case scenario, I would imagine, and make sure that you qualify rather than, risk winning and falling flat on your face. So I would be interested to see how Bunting approaches this. If he gets to that 3-leg mark, will he keep on going or will he ease off? I'm not sure. One thing we know for sure is even if Mitchell gets knocked out by Bunting getting to the 3 legs, he'll keep on going. He's a BDO player. He enjoys the spotlight. He enjoys being on the big stage. He'll have nothing to lose, and if he can walk away with 2 PDC scalps to his name, then happy days. That'll be something for him to take to Lakeside with him in a couple of months' time. So value on Mitchell here. Obviously, if he wins 5-2, he's definitely through, and it'll be interesting to see if he can do that. I'm hoping, like you, that Deswan wins that first game, and then Mitchell wins this one 5-2, and I'll coin in on the group win bet from the Outright podcast, and everyone will be happy. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But again, it's hard to back Bunting knowing that he only needs 3 legs rather than 5. If I'm backing someone, particularly at odds on, I want to know full well that they're going for the maximum legs rather than a set number.
I think Mitchell's a really big price here, 2.5. I'm quite happy to tip him to win this game. I could see Bunting easing off if he knows he's already through. And if he gets close, there's only one man I'd want to be on, and that's Mitchell, because Bunting just gets very twitchy, doesn't he, at the moment, like you say. Just wants to qualify. He should qualify, but you never know, do you? Funny things have happened. I think Mitchell should be... I think it should be probably evens apiece, really. Maybe Bunting slight favourite, but Scott Mitchell 2.5 I think it's a really big price, Kev. So that's giving my tip of the day, and going along with your couple of Michael Smith -2.5 handicap, and Jeffrey Deswan to hit more than 2.5 180. So best of luck with those selections, and very much enjoyed the chat here of all the games on Monday night, and we'll be back for more on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Tuesday night looks like a really tasty card, doesn't it? With some straight knockout matches and some big names still got a little bit of work to do if they're to make it through. A couple of BDO players going well, so all set up for another dramatic night on Tuesday. So yeah, best of luck with Mitchell, Steve, and I'll catch you on Tuesday.
Thanks very much. We'll see you all on Tuesday, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.